Good morning, everyone. My name is Jesse Burke, and I'm the Chief of Special Operations with Red Sky Alliance. Did you figure out our anagram? Good news, there's no new ransomware group called Fairly Old Soap. April Fools, that's an anagram for April Fool's Day. So we thought that was pretty funny given that, times right now could use a little humor. So we hope that you found it funny and everybody have a great day. Now for more news, I do have information for you on a very clever new ZLoader variant that showed up last week. And as always, today's threat brief contains information gathered from open source and WAPEC Labs collections over the last week. Next slide, please. For the agenda today, we're going to briefly discuss ZLoader's new obfuscated delivery method. We will then cover recent data breaches and cyber attacks in open source and social media, and then go over 7 days of trending, including the latest APT activities, Botnet activity, cloud security, Blacklists, and keylogger activity. Next slide, please. So first up is ZLoader's new undetectable delivery method. ZLoader has been observed being heavily utilized in phishing recently via email. And it's currently unclear if it's one actor or many actor operating ZLoader. ZLoader has an open source association with Zeus Sphinx Trojan and is the apparent name for the loader of that Trojan. Zeus and Sphinx Trojan in its final form operates over the Tor network, and the payloads observed being delivered by the ZLoader phishing we're seeing do not operate over the Tor network. So the current campaign is unlikely linked to Zeus Sphinx Trojan. It's kind of like Qbot and Crackbot, how they get mistaked, but they actually have no relation. We believe that's what's going on here. So our ZLoader sample, it was an Excel XLS, and it was sent to sales@wapeclabs.com. With spoofed headers showing from sales. And upon running strings against the malware, the command and control server, or C2, can be observed in plain text. However, in a recent version that a Red Sky Alliance member received, the C2 was obfuscated and it was not easily observable, so indicating that they're improving this method. Next slide, please. So why is this delivery method pretty much undetectable when initially used? The reason behind that's pretty simple. Excel 4.0 functions reside in an OLE stream, not in a macro. So standard word macro analysis tools like OLE VBA do not report anything suspicious about these types of files. And given that the data resides in a stream versus a macro, it's harder to analyze without running, and therefore many sandboxes and antiviruses fail to detect this method, but they'll report detection after there's open source intelligence and reporting, which is why gradually over time, detection will increase with these samples. But if you go and look at one, for example, from today, April 1st, 2020, it's gonna scan as clean, and then maybe tomorrow it'll be detected by 1 or 2 vendors. Our sample contains a hidden worksheet, and the hidden worksheet has malicious code in the cells, and those cells get unpacked by functions. And in some instances, instead of a direct payload, an Excel object actually will trigger a web query, grabbing an additional Excel formulas to download a second stage payload. Next slide, please. So we found a unique string which can be used to retro hunt for additional stage 1 samples. Since observing the more advanced variant from a Red Sky Alliance member, we're planning on doing a deeper dive and report on this topic, covering its multi-stage payloads beyond the initial delivery. Next slide, please. So this week in gray noise activity, we see high detection in SMB and Telnet related activities. SMB scanner, eternal blue, and looks like eternal blue detections are all likely in some way associated with port 445 SMB. The Mirai detection may be related to port 23 telnet activity or a Mirai Internet of Things botnet or variant. Finally, the MS SQL scanner activity over any other database scanner seems kind of odd and is likely opportunistic scanning from a bad guy with an easily triggerable exploit, or an actor looking for a company database to sell or trade, or potentially lock and extort. Gray noise activity this week has remained fairly consistent with other weeks reporting. Excuse me. Next slide, please. So in open source this week, we have first up, Booz Allen Hamilton released a 80+ page on Russian APT activities, I believe spanning from 2015 to current, maybe a little bit earlier. Very good report though. The state of Texas Department of Information Resources issued some revealing recommendations after dealing with a ransomware attack on 22 municipalities of theirs, and over $1 million ransom back in 2019. And a proof of concept for CVE 2020-0796 SMB Ghost was released. Marriott, the hotel chain, discloses another database breach impacting up to 5.2 million guests. And the FBI has issued an alert warning of nation-state actors using Quampire's app. Next slide, please. So last week we recorded approximately 1.2 million of the indicators listed above. These collections included our threat recon, keylogger, malicious email, and sinkhole traffic. The numbers on this slide show the indicators in the respective collections. Indicators are available to paid Red Sky Alliance members weekly, as well as our blacklists, which come in CSV, FortiSIM, and Proofpoint formats. Next slide, please. These are the APT and Botnet indicators collected in the last 2 weeks. We had 226 unique APT indicators in the past 7 days. This is up 64 indicators from last week's reporting. You can use your two-factor authentication to log into CTAC to download the APT indicators discussed today. Please contact us on Slack or via email for any assistance. And on the right, you can see our top sinkhole statistics sorted by malware. Next slide, please. So topping the list this week for APT indicators is Sality, with Shiz and Korkow in second and third place. We see SickyPot falling back to fourth place position. Of note, the Sality detection being so high could be due to generic detection associated with cryptors and obfuscation being detected as Sality. That's one of the more generic detections we commonly see. Next slide, please. So botnet activity over the last 7 days remains fairly consistent with prior trending. ChinaNet has replaced Jinrong Street at the top, but Bharti Airtel and VNPT have maintained their positions in the top 3. 31 Jinrong Street, our consistent weekly top botnet ASN, remains absent and likely was renamed or its IP space reallocated. We're going to look more into that. Next slide, please. So in cloud security, we're seeing botnet activities in the same cloud environments as usual. Amazon takes the top spot with Alibaba and Peak 10 close behind. Microsoft, likely due to Azure hosting, is also in the top. TierPoint, GoDaddy, and Rackspace also are all high-risk cloud environments this week. For cautionary risk hosting environments this week, we have ONR and SharkTech. Last, as a low-risk hosting environment, is HE.com. And HE.com has been observed in high, medium, and low-risk weekly reports and should not be taken lightly despite this week's low caution. Next slide, please. So in our malicious email collection this week, we observed 2 attempts against 163.com, which is a Chinese popular email provider. And we also observed the same ongoing whack attack campaign, which we've observed for weeks, maybe months, targeting electroputer.ro, and it looks like diffamec.com is a new target of theirs. And last, we see a UTF-8 encoded, so likely Chinese, Russian, or another language which requires a UTF-8 character set, Trojan, and it's utilizing CVE 2017-11882, which is a Microsoft Office memory corruption vulnerability. Next slide, please. Our blacklists are published weekly. On the left-hand side, you can see some of our keylogger stats. Last week, we observed 49,007 sinkhole connections from new unique IP addresses and 44 unique email accounts compromised with keyloggers. Please go to redskyalliance.org to inquire for additional support, complete blacklist, red X-ray, and API access. Next slide, please. Thank you all for joining us today. Please visit our Red Sky Alliance portal at redskyalliance.org for additional cyber intelligence reporting. If you have any questions regarding the topics briefed today, please get in touch with Jay McKee at wapaclabs.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you on Wednesday, April 15th. Take care.